She said it on a Tuesday. Not in the heat of an argument. Not after a long day or a glass of wine or one of those explosive family fights where words come out sideways and nobody means what they say. No. She said it at 7:42 in the morning, standing in the kitchen of the house I built, wearing the robe I bought her for Christmas 3 years ago, holding a coffee mug that still had my late husband's initials etched into the ceramic. She said it like she was commenting on the weather. "You're lucky we let you stay here, Mom. My name is Doris. I am 67 years old." And at the moment my only daughter, Pamela, said those 9 words to me across a granite countertop I had personally selected from a warehouse in Raleigh 14 years ago, I was standing in a pair of house slippers with a dishrag draped over my left shoulder, rinsing out the skillet I had just used to cook breakfast for 5 people, none of whom had thanked me. I didn't flinch. I didn't drop the skillet. I didn't feel the familiar hot rush of humiliation that had been climbing up the back of my neck every morning for the past 11 months, ever since I moved into this house after Henry died. Instead, something inside my chest went very still, very cold, very precise, because I had been waiting for her to say it out loud. If this story is already finding its way under your skin, hit that like button and subscribe to Linda's Life Diaries, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. She always said the ones who stay quiet longest know the most. Let's see if that's true. Let me go back. Before I became the woman standing in house slippers, rinsing someone else's skillet in a kitchen that used to be mine, I spent 31 years as the Director of Procurement for Medline Regional Health, the second largest hospital network in North Carolina. 31 years negotiating pharmaceutical contracts, vendor agreements, and multi-million-dollar supply chain deals across 9 hospitals, 14 outpatient facilities, and 3 specialty clinics. I managed annual budgets that exceeded $47 million. I once caught a medical equipment supplier inflating invoices by 11% across 3 fiscal quarters, and built a case so clean that the company settled for $2.3 million before we even filed. My entire professional life was built on one principle. Read the contract before you sign it. Read the room before you speak. Read the people before you trust them. And I was very, very good at reading people. Henry used to say I could spot a liar the way a jeweler spots a fake diamond, not by what's wrong with it, but by what's too perfect about it. He said it with pride. He said it like he was bragging about something precious. Henry. My Henry. We were married for 41 years. He was a quiet man with large hands and a laugh that could fill a room from the doorway. He ran a small general contracting business for most of our marriage, residential builds, kitchen remodels, the occasional commercial project. Steady work. Good work. The kind of work that keeps food on the table and college tuition paid but doesn't make you rich by any standard Pamela would recognize. Or so everyone thought. What nobody knew, not Pamela, not her husband Marcus, not anyone outside of our estate attorney and one very discreet financial advisor, was that in 2009, Henry had quietly become a 20% silent partner in a commercial real estate development venture with his old college roommate, Earl Watkins. Earl had the connections. Henry had the construction expertise and the startup capital. $180,000 from our combined retirement savings. A bet that made me lose sleep for 6 straight months. But the bet paid off. By the time Henry was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2022, that 20% stake had grown into a portfolio of commercial properties across central North Carolina worth just over $19 million. Our share, held inside a blind trust administered by our estate attorney Wallace Kemp, was valued at approximately $8.5 million. Henry never told Pamela. He never told Marcus. He never told anyone. Because Henry understood something about our daughter that I had been trying not to see for years. Pamela did not love us. Pamela loved what we could provide. Henry saw it clearly. He had watched Pamela move through her 20s and 30s with the particular confidence of a woman who believed she deserved comfort without earning it. She had gone to a private university on our savings, graduated with a degree in communication she never used, married Marcus Chun, a dentist with a new practice and an aggressive lease on a building he couldn't yet afford, and immediately began living at a financial altitude that required supplemental oxygen. The vacations, the country club, the luxury SUV she traded in every 2 years, the private school tuition for the children, the kitchen renovation, the second kitchen renovation because the first one dated too quickly, all of it funded by credit cards, Marcus's fluctuating practice income, and the quiet, steady stream of money Henry sent them whenever Pamela called with a voice that sounded like it was about to crack. "Daddy, we're a little short this month." Henry always sent it. Every time. And every time I watched him write the check with that expression I knew so well, not the face of a generous father, but the face of a man who was keeping a ledger in his head and wondering when the balance would come due. He told me once, sitting in his home office 3 months before the diagnosis, staring at a transfer confirmation on his screen. "She's never going to say thank you, Doris. That's not what worries me. What worries me is what she'll do when I'm not here to write the checks anymore." I remember looking at him across the desk. "What do you mean?" He turned the monitor toward me. On the screen was a property tax record from the county assessor's office. It was for the building at 4200 Crescent Ridge Parkway, the professional office complex where Marcus leased the entire second floor for his dental practice. "I bought this building 18 months ago," Henry said. "Through the trust. Marcus doesn't know his landlord is his father-in-law. He's 3 months behind on rent, Doris. 3 months. And his practice is hemorrhaging money because he's using it like a personal ATM." I sat down slowly. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was hoping he'd turn it around. I told the property management company to extend grace periods. I've been covering his shortfalls out of the trust operating account, so the building's other tenants don't get disrupted." He paused. "But that's not the worst part." He opened another file. A property deed. I recognized the address immediately. It was Pamela and Marcus's house. The sprawling 4-bedroom colonial in the Wyndham Estates subdivision with the 3-car garage, and the pool Marcus had insisted on installing the summer before last. "Marcus took out a second mortgage 2 years ago," Henry said. "Without telling Pamela. He used it to float his practice. He defaulted. The bank was going to foreclose." Henry closed his eyes. "I bought the debt, Doris. Through the trust. I own their house. They don't know it. They think the bank just gave them another extension." The silence in that office was the loudest thing I had ever heard. "Henry," I said, "you own the building where Marcus works and the house where our daughter sleeps?" "Yes. And they have no idea. None. Why?" He looked at me with those tired, honest eyes. "Because I love her, Doris. I love her even though she doesn't deserve it. And I'm afraid of what happens to her when I'm gone. So I'm building a safety net she doesn't know about because if she knew about it, she would sell it, spend it, and be back to zero inside of 18 months. He was right. I knew he was right. And that knowledge sat inside my chest like a stone I would carry for the rest of my life. Henry died on a Saturday morning in March. It was raining. The hospice nurse said he went peacefully, but I was holding his hand when it happened, and I felt the exact moment his grip released, and there was nothing peaceful about it. It was the most violent subtraction I have ever experienced. The removal of a presence so constant that its absence restructured the physics of every room in the house. The funeral was on Wednesday. Pamela cried beautifully. Marcus stood beside her in a dark suit, his hand on her back, projecting the image of a supportive husband and devoted son-in-law. The church was full. People said lovely things. Someone read from Ecclesiastes. Someone else told a story about Henry fixing a stranger's porch railing because he happened to be driving past and noticed it was leaning. That story was true. That was exactly who Henry was. And not one person in that church, not the pastor, not the neighbors, not the old contracting partners, had any idea that the quiet man in the casket had quietly assembled a commercial property portfolio worth nearly $20 million. After the burial, everyone came back to our house, Henry's and my house, the modest 3-bedroom ranch on Briarwood Lane that we had owned outright since 2004. Pamela organized the reception. She was good at that, the logistics of performance. The catering, the flowers, the guest book, the framed photos arranged chronologically on the mantel. She pulled me aside in the hallway while Marcus was pouring wine for the guests. "Mom, we need to talk about what comes next." I was still wearing my black dress. My feet ached. My eyes were swollen from 3 days of crying that I had done only in private, only in the bathroom with the fan on, because I did not want anyone to hear the specific sound a woman makes when the man who held her world together for 4 decades is suddenly irrevocably gone. "Not today, Pamela." "I know, Mom. I know. But we've been talking, Marcus and I, and we think you shouldn't be alone in this house. It's too big for one person." The maintenance alone. Not today. She pressed her lips together. Okay. But soon. Soon came 11 days later. Pamela and Marcus arrived at my front door on a Sunday afternoon with a bottle of wine, a folder of printed real estate listings, and a proposal they had clearly rehearsed. The pitch was smooth. Marcus delivered most of it. He had that particular confidence of a man who assumes his dental degree qualifies him to advise on every subject, including real estate, finance, and the emotional capacity of a 67-year-old woman. Doris, the property taxes on this house alone are almost $9,000 a year. The roof needs replacing. The HVAC system is original. Henry handled all the maintenance himself, and with all due respect, you're not going to be up on a ladder cleaning gutters. We think the smartest move, Pamela added, touching my arm with that practiced tenderness she deployed when she wanted something, is for you to sell this house, put the equity into a safe investment and come live with us. We have that guest suite above the garage. It's practically its own apartment. You'd have privacy, you'd be close to the grandkids, and you wouldn't have to worry about any of this. The guest suite above the garage. I had been to their house many times. I knew the guest suite. It was a single room with a half bathroom, a window that faced the neighbor's fence, and a portable air conditioning unit that sounded like a diesel engine. Pamela used it as overflow storage for her online shopping returns. What about the house? I asked. We've already talked to a realtor, Marcus said, too quickly. She thinks we can list it at $385,000. Maybe $400,000 if we stage it properly. That money, combined with whatever Henry left in savings, would be more than enough to. Henry didn't leave savings, I said. I watched their faces. This was the moment, the hinge point. The information I delivered now would determine everything that followed. His medical bills were significant, I continued, my voice carefully calibrated to sound exhausted and overwhelmed. The hospice care, the specialists, the experimental treatments insurance wouldn't cover. I haven't gone through all the paperwork yet, but from what I can see, there's very little liquid left. The house is the only real asset. I saw it, the flicker. Not grief. Not sympathy. Calculation. Marcus's eyes narrowed by a fraction of a millimeter. Pamela's fingers tightened on the stem of her wine glass. All the more reason to sell it quickly, Marcus said, recovering, before the market shifts. And come live with you. With us, Pamela confirmed, squeezing my hand. Where you'll be taken care of. I knew what I was doing. I had spent 31 years reading contracts and the people who wrote them. I knew what taken care of meant in Pamela's vocabulary. It meant located within arm's reach when they needed something and invisible when they didn't. It meant present in the house but absent from the decisions. It meant grateful. But I also knew something they didn't. I knew that Wallace Kemp, our trust attorney, was sitting in his office at that very moment with a complete inventory of the blind trust. Every property, every account, every holding, along with a sealed letter Henry had written to me 6 weeks before he died. I hadn't opened the letter yet. Wallace had told me it was there. He had told me Henry's instructions were to give me the letter only after the funeral, only after the family had made their first move. Henry knew them. He knew what they would do. He had planned for it. I looked at Pamela. I looked at Marcus. I thought about the building Marcus didn't know Henry owned. I thought about the house Marcus didn't know Henry had saved from foreclosure. I thought about the dental practice that was bleeding money into a slow, inevitable collapse that Marcus was hiding from everyone, including his wife. Okay, I said quietly. I'll sell the house. I'll come live with you. Pamela exhaled. Marcus smiled. They thought they had one. I let them think that. Because I was not a grieving widow making a desperate decision. I was a procurement director entering a negotiation. And in my line of work, the first rule of any complex deal is this. Never let the other party know what you're holding until the contract is on the table and their signature is already dry. The house sold in 19 days. $392,000. Marcus handled the closing. He insisted, saying he knew people in real estate, which meant he had golfed once with a mortgage broker at the country club. The proceeds went into a joint savings account that Marcus had helpfully set up for estate management purposes. I noticed, without commenting, that his name was listed as a co-signatory. I moved into the guest suite above Pamela's garage on a warm Friday in May, carrying 2 suitcases, a box of Henry's personal effects, and a very specific understanding of exactly what I was walking into. The first 3 weeks were what I would call the performance period. Pamela was attentive. She brought me tea in the mornings. She introduced me to her friends at the neighborhood barbecue as my mom. She's staying with us now. Marcus was cordial, even warm. He asked about my day. He offered to drive me to my doctor's appointments. The grandchildren, Lily, who was 15, and Oliver, who was 11, were genuinely happy to see me. Lily especially. She was a quiet girl with sharp eyes and Henry's slow, deliberate way of observing a room before entering it. She brought me books from her school library. She sat on the floor of the guest suite in the evenings and asked me questions about her grandfather. Real questions, not the performative kind her mother asked at the funeral. Grandma, did Pop ever talk about what he wanted to do when he retired? He wanted to drive across the country, I said. He had a map in his office with pins in every town he wanted to visit. Did he ever get to? No, sweetheart. He ran out of time. Lily looked at me with those clear, unguarded eyes. That's really sad. Yes, I said. It is. Lily saw me. Not as a fixture, not as a responsibility, not as a problem to be managed. She saw me as a person. And over the weeks that followed, as the performance period ended and the real architecture of the household revealed itself, Lily became the only person under that roof who treated me as though I still mattered. The shift happened gradually, the way temperature drops in autumn. You don't notice it until you're shivering. Week 4. Pamela stopped bringing tea. She didn't announce it. The mug simply stopped appearing on the nightstand next to the portable air conditioner. I made my own tea and said nothing. Week 5. Marcus started referring to my presence in the third person even when I was in the room. Is your mom going to be here for dinner? Or is she eating upstairs? He asked this while I was sitting 12 feet away at the kitchen island, clearly visible, clearly present. Week 6. Pamela asked me without eye contact if I could help out with some of the household tasks, laundry, dishes, light cooking. Since you're here anyway, and honestly, Mom, it gives you something to do. I said yes. I folded their laundry. I washed their dishes. I cooked their dinners, the specific dinners Pamela requested, prepared the specific way Marcus preferred, served at the specific time they designated, which was 6:30 sharp because Marcus had a show he watched at 7 o'clock and did not like to be interrupted. I ate after they finished. Not because anyone told me to, not at first. It simply became the pattern. By the time the family sat down, there were 4 place settings. Pamela, Marcus, Lily, and Oliver. My plate was in the kitchen on the counter where I stood. Week 8. Marcus moved my suitcases from the front hallway closet to the garage without asking. We need the space, he said, not looking up from his phone. Your stuff is taking up too much room. Week 9. Pamela canceled my dentist appointment. My dentist, the one I had been seeing for 12 years, the one who knew my history, the one Henry and I had chosen together. Marcus says we can't justify the insurance copays right now. His practice is things are tight. You understand. I understood perfectly. Marcus's practice was tight because Marcus was running it into the ground. I knew this because I had spent an evening in the guest suite reviewing the publicly available UCC filings and business license records for Chun Family Dentistry, LLC. The practice had 2 active liens, was 60 days delinquent on its equipment lease, and had recently been flagged by the State Dental Board for a lapsed malpractice insurance policy. I said none of this. I simply nodded and told Pamela I understood. Week 10. The locks changed. Not all of them. Just the front door. Marcus had the locks rekeyed on a Wednesday afternoon while I was at the grocery store. Walking, because Pamela had taken the car and Marcus said the Uber budget was getting out of hand. When I returned with 2 bags of groceries I had paid for with my own money, money from the $2,200 monthly pension Pamela did not know I received through a separate, untraceable direct deposit into an account she had never seen, I could not get in the front door. I stood on the porch for 14 minutes. 14 minutes in the July heat, holding melting ice cream and wilting lettuce, waiting for someone to hear the doorbell. It was Lily who finally opened the door. She looked at me with an expression that broke something inside my chest. Not confusion, not annoyance. Shame. The particular burning shame of a child who knows that something in her house is wrong, and does not have the power to fix it. "I'm sorry, Grandma," she whispered. "Dad changed the locks. He forgot to give you a key." He didn't forget. I knew that. Lily knew that. We both knew that, and we both said nothing, because saying it out loud would have made it real, and neither of us was ready for the weight of what real would require. By month 4, the architecture was complete. I was no longer a guest. I was no longer family, not in any way that carried operational meaning inside that house. I was staff. Unpaid, unacknowledged, and increasingly invisible. I cooked every meal. I cleaned the kitchen, the bathrooms, the living room. I did laundry for 4 people. I ironed Marcus's dress shirts. He required light starch on the collar and cuffs, a specification he delivered without please or thank you, as though he were entering an order into a system. I was not invited to dinner parties. When Pamela's book club came over on Thursday evenings, I was asked to stay upstairs, so the house didn't feel crowded. When Marcus's dental school friends visited for a weekend, Pamela introduced me as my mom. She helps around the house, and then steered the conversation away from me as though I were a piece of furniture that had briefly spoken. The grocery budget was the first thing they formally controlled. Pamela started giving me a weekly list and a fixed amount of cash, $140 for a household of 5. I was expected to buy their organic produce, their imported cheeses, their specific brand of sparkling water, and whatever was left, if anything, was for me. I ate a lot of rice. I ate a lot of canned soup. I ate the remnants of dinners I had cooked, the pieces of chicken no one wanted, the vegetables left in the serving bowl, the bread heels. I never complained. Not because I couldn't. Not because I was afraid. But because every single day, while Pamela and Marcus slept in the master bedroom and Lily did her homework and Oliver played his video games and the house hummed with the particular, devastating normalcy of a family that had decided one of its members was expendable, I was working. Every evening, after the dishes were done and the kitchen was clean and the lights downstairs were off, I climbed the stairs to the guest suite above the garage. I closed the door. I turned on the portable air conditioner that sounded like a diesel engine. And I opened my laptop, the laptop nobody in the house knew I had, purchased with cash from a Best Buy 40 minutes away, connected to the internet through a mobile hotspot on a prepaid phone registered under the name of a woman who, as far as Pamela and Marcus were concerned, did not exist. I logged into the secure portal Wallace Kemp had set up for trust beneficiaries. I reviewed property management reports for the commercial portfolio. I read the quarterly financial statements. I studied the rent rolls, the maintenance logs, the insurance policies, the tax filings. And every Wednesday at 9 p.m., while the household slept, I called Wallace. "How is the building on Crescent Ridge?" I would ask. "Marcus is now 114 days delinquent on commercial rent," Wallace would say, his voice carrying the particular patience of a man who had been managing trusts for 40 years and had learned never to be surprised by the behavior of beneficiaries' relatives. "And the house? The second mortgage your husband acquired is current only because the trust continues to service the debt per Henry's standing instructions. But Doris, if I may, Henry's instructions also included a sunset provision. If the occupants demonstrate certain behaviors, the trust is authorized to call the note." "Not yet," I would say. "I'm still gathering data." Because that is what I was doing. I was not suffering. I was not being victimized. I was conducting the most important audit of my life, an audit of my own family, performed with the same methodical precision I had applied to $47 million procurement budgets for 3 decades. I was documenting everything. Every denied meal. Every locked door. Every comment made within earshot. Every financial transaction I could trace. I was building a case. Not for a courtroom, not yet, but for something more devastating. A complete, irrefutable accounting of exactly who my daughter and her husband had become. Henry had asked me, in the letter I finally opened 2 weeks after moving in, to do exactly this. His handwriting was shaky. He had written it during his final weeks, when his hands could barely hold the pen, but his words were precise. "Doris, if you're reading this, I'm gone and they've already started. I know them. I know what they'll do. They'll take the house. They'll take the money. They'll take your dignity if you let them. Don't let them. Wallace has everything. The trust, the properties, the accounts. It's all yours now. Every single piece. But I need you to be patient. I need you to see it clearly before you act. I need you to really know who they are. Because once you move, there's no going back. You were always the smarter one, Doris. I just had the good sense to marry you. Wait for the right moment. You'll know it when it comes. Oh, my love, Henry. I folded the letter and placed it inside the lining of my suitcase. The suitcase Marcus had banished to the garage, the one nobody bothered to open because nobody cared what an old woman kept in her luggage. And I waited. I waited through month 5 when Pamela started opening my mail. I waited through month 6 when Marcus began making comments about the cost of feeding an extra mouth. I waited through month 7 when Pamela told me I should consider getting a part-time job at the grocery store because it would be good for you to have something to do, Mom, instead of just sitting around. Sitting around. As though I had not cooked 217 meals, washed 43 loads of laundry, scrubbed 11 toilets, and ironed 89 dress shirts since moving in. As though my labor was not labor because it was unpaid and therefore invisible. I waited. And I watched. And every night, in the guest suite above the garage, I updated my files. The moment was coming. I could feel it the way you feel a thunderstorm building, the pressure dropping, the air going still, the light changing from gold to green. I just didn't know it would arrive in the form of a 15-year-old girl standing in my doorway at 11 o'clock on a Monday night, holding a piece of paper she had found in her father's desk drawer. Her eyes wide with something that was not quite fear and not quite fury but the exact, devastating combination of both. "Grandma," Lily whispered, "I think you need to see this." Lily stepped into the guest suite and closed the door behind her. She was wearing an oversized sweatshirt and pajama pants, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was holding a single sheet of paper with both hands, the way you hold something that has burned you and you haven't decided whether to drop it or keep holding on. She sat down on the edge of my bed. The portable air conditioner rattled in the corner. The house below us was silent. Marcus watching his show in the living room, Pamela scrolling through her phone in the master bedroom, Oliver already asleep. The particular, oppressive quiet of a household that functions on the assumption that one of its members does not have a voice. "I wasn't snooping," Lily said, her words coming out fast, the way they do when a teenager is trying to justify something before you've even accused them. "Dad asked me to get a stapler from his desk. The drawer was stuck. I pulled hard and it came all the way out, and these papers fell out from underneath." She held the sheet toward me. I took it carefully, tilting it toward the bedside lamp. It was a draft petition. Typed, formatted, bearing the letterhead of a law firm I did not recognize, Beckford and Associates, a small practice in Durham. The header read, "Petition for emergency guardianship and conservatorship in the matter of Doris Eleanor Whitfield." I read it slowly the way I had read 10,000 contracts in my career. Not for what it said but for what it meant. The petition alleged that I was exhibiting signs of progressive cognitive decline, including memory loss, confusion, inability to manage personal finances, and episodes of disorientation. It cited observable behavioral deterioration over a period of 11 months. It requested that the court appoint Marcus Chun as my legal guardian and conservator, granting him full authority over my person, my medical decisions, and the pivot point, the reason the entire document existed, my financial assets. My financial assets. The $392,000 from the sale of my house, which was sitting in the joint savings account Marcus had set up. The account I had signed onto because I was performing the role of a bewildered widow who needed help. The account Marcus had been co-signatory on since the day he opened it. I looked up at Lily. Her eyes were fixed on my face, searching for something, a reaction, a confirmation, a sign that her grandmother was the person she believed she was and not the diminished, confused woman her parents described at dinner parties. "There was more," Lily said. She reached into the pocket of her sweatshirt and pulled out a folded printout. This was clipped to the back. I unfolded it. It was a bank statement. The joint savings account. The one that should have held $392,000 from the sale of my house. The current balance was $87,214. $304,786 had been withdrawn over 9 months in a series of transfers, $15,000 here, $22,000 there, $8,500, $31,000, $47,000, all directed to accounts I had never seen, under entity names I did not recognize. Chun Capital Holdings LLC. Wyndham Property Solutions. A personal checking account in Marcus's name alone. He had been siphoning the money. Slowly, methodically, in amounts calculated to stay just below the reporting thresholds that might trigger a bank inquiry. The precision of it was almost admirable, if it hadn't been theft. And now, with less than $90,000 remaining, he needed legal authority to take the rest. The guardianship petition wasn't about my health. It was a financial instrument designed to give Marcus total control of whatever assets I had left, including, though he did not know this, the blind trust he had never heard of. I folded both documents and placed them on the nightstand. My hands were perfectly steady. "Grandma," Lily whispered, Are you actually losing your memory? Mom says you are. Dad says you left the stove on last week, but I was home, Grandma. I was in the kitchen. You didn't leave the stove on. Dad turned it on after you left the room and then called Mom in to look at it. The stove. Of course. The manufactured evidence. The paper trail of incompetence they were building. The dropped plates, the confusion, the episodes. All of it staged, documented, and ready to present to a judge who would have no reason to question a concerned son-in-law protecting his elderly mother-in-law from herself. I reached over and took Lily's hand. Lily, I want you to listen to me carefully. Can you do that? She nodded. I am not confused. I am not losing my memory. I am not deteriorating. Do you understand? I know, she said, and the relief in her voice was so raw, so immediate, that I felt it in my sternum. I know you're not, Grandma. I've known the whole time. You're the sharpest person in this house. I see you. I see you watching everything, noticing everything. You're not confused. She paused, searching for the word. You're waiting. 15 years old. Henry's granddaughter. She had his eyes, his patience, his devastating clarity. Yes, I said. I'm waiting. But I need you to do something for me now. Anything. I need you to put these papers back exactly where you found them. Exactly. The same drawer, the same position, the same angle. Can you do that? Yes. And I need you to not say a word to anyone. Not your mother, not your father, not Oliver, not your friends. No text, no social media, nothing. Can you keep this between us? She looked at me. Grandma, what are you going to do? I squeezed her hand. I'm going to do what I've always done, sweetheart. I'm going to read the contract. And then I'm going to close the deal. She stared at me for a long moment. Then something shifted in her expression. The fear didn't disappear, but it moved aside, and in its place came something I recognized from decades of boardrooms and negotiations. Trust. The specific, hard-won trust of a person who has decided to bet on someone else's competence. Okay, Grandma. She took the papers, slipped them into her sweatshirt pocket, and walked to the door. She paused with her hand on the knob. Grandma. Yes. Pop would be really proud of you right now. She left. The door clicked shut. The air conditioner rattled. And I sat on the edge of that thin mattress in the guest suite above my daughter's garage, staring at the wall, and felt the last restraint inside my chest release. I had been patient. I had been strategic. I had been observing and documenting and waiting for 11 months, building my case the way I had built every major procurement audit of my career. With precision, with evidence, with an airtight paper trail that would leave no room for denial, reinterpretation, or escape. But patience has a limit. Even the most disciplined auditor reaches the point where the data is complete and the only thing left is the action. Marcus was planning to have me declared legally incompetent. He was planning to take my autonomy, my finances, my identity. He was planning to turn me into a ward of the court, a woman without a voice, without a choice, without the legal standing to object to anything done in her name. And my daughter, my Pamela, the girl I had held in the delivery room, the girl I had driven to dance recitals and college orientations and her own wedding, my daughter knew. She knew about the petition. She knew about the stove. She knew about the manufactured evidence of my supposed decline. She was a participant, not a bystander. I picked up my phone. It was 11:47 p.m. I dialed Wallace Kemp's private number. He answered on the second ring. He always answered. Henry had chosen him for exactly this quality. A man who understood that the most important calls come after midnight. Doris. Wallace, I need you to activate the sunset provision. A pause. The particular pause of an attorney who has been holding a loaded instrument for 11 months and has just been told to chamber the round. Are you certain? Marcus has drained over $300,000 from the joint account. He's filing for emergency guardianship. He manufactured a stove incident as evidence of cognitive decline. My daughter is co-conspirating. Good Lord. I need 3 things by Friday. First, I need a complete forensic trace on every withdrawal from the joint savings account, destination accounts, entity registrations, beneficial ownership. Second, I need the trust to formally call the note on the Wyndham Estates property. Give them 30 days. That's their house, Doris. I'm aware of whose house it is. I'm also aware of whose house it actually is. Another pause. And the third thing? I need a formal notice of commercial lease termination for Suite 200 at 4200 Crescent Ridge Parkway. Effective immediately. 90-day cure period waived due to chronic delinquency. That's Marcus's dental practice. That is a tenant who is 126 days delinquent on commercial rent in a building owned by the trust one administer. The fact that the tenant is my son-in-law is legally irrelevant. Doris. Wallace's voice had shifted. It was no longer the cautious tone of an attorney advising restraint. It was the low, almost reverent tone of a man who has just watched someone execute a move he did not see coming. You're going to pull the building, the house, and the bank records simultaneously. I'm going to pull everything, Wallace. Everything Henry built. Everything they took. Everything they assumed was theirs because they never bothered to ask whose name was on the deed. When? I'll let you know. But Wallace, one more thing. Yes. I need a single manila envelope. Inside it, I want one document. The recorded deed showing the trust's ownership of the Wyndham Estates property. Their house. Just the deed. Nothing else. No cover letter, no explanation, no legal language. Just the paper that proves I own the roof over their heads. Just the deed. Just the deed. They won't need an explanation. The document will do the talking. I hung up. I turned off the lamp. I lay down on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. The same water-stained, slightly sagging ceiling I had stared at for 11 months. But it looked different now. It didn't look like a prison. It looked like an observation deck. The next 3 days were the quietest performance of my life. I cooked breakfast. I washed dishes. I folded laundry. I ironed Marcus's shirts with light starch on the collar and cuffs. I answered when spoken to. I ate standing at the kitchen counter. I smiled when Pamela's friends came over. I excused myself to the guest suite when my presence was no longer convenient. If this story has found you, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story from Linda's Life Diaries. The best ones are still coming. And the people who watch to the end are exactly the ones who need to hear them. But beneath the surface, the machinery was moving. Wallace filed the forensic trace request with the bank on Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, he had confirmation. Marcus had moved $304,786 across 6 different accounts, 4 of which were registered to shell entities with no operating history, no employees, and no revenue source. The money had been used to cover delinquent payments on his dental practice equipment, service his personal credit card debt, fund a down payment on a boat he had not yet told Pamela about, and this one made me close my eyes for a full 30 seconds, pay a $28,000 retainer to Beckford and Associates for the guardianship petition. He had used my money to pay the lawyer who was going to take away my right to control my money. I shared none of this with anyone in the house. Not even Lily. Especially not Lily. Because Lily was 15, and 15-year-olds carry things on their faces that adults have learned to hide. And I could not afford to have Marcus see a single expression he couldn't explain. What I did, instead, was something Henry would have understood. I became more fragile. Wednesday morning, I dropped a glass while washing dishes. It shattered on the tile floor. Marcus came into the kitchen, saw the broken glass, and I watched him register it, not as an accident but as evidence. Another data point for the petition. "Mom, you okay?" Pamela asked from the living room, not looking up from her phone. "I'm fine," I said, letting my voice tremble. My hands, they've been shaking. I don't know why. Marcus picked up his phone and typed a quick note. I saw him do it. He was logging the incident, documenting my decline in real time, building the file that Beckford and Associates would present to a judge. I let him. Wednesday afternoon, I asked Pamela the same question twice within an hour. What time does Oliver's soccer practice end? Making sure Marcus was within earshot both times. His eyes flickered. Another entry in the log. Thursday morning I wandered into the wrong bathroom, the master bathroom, not the half bath downstairs I was permitted to use. I stood in the doorway looking confused until Pamela found me and gently steered me back toward the hallway. Mom, that's our bathroom. Remember? Yours is downstairs. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I forgot. I didn't forget. I had never forgotten anything in my life. But every manufactured moment of confusion was another brick in the wall Marcus was building, the wall he believed would seal me inside a conservatorship. What he didn't understand was that I was building a wall too. And mine had a door in it. A door that opened only from my side. Thursday evening, something changed in the house. Marcus came home from the practice at 4:30, an hour and a half early. This was unusual. Marcus's routine was as rigid as his starch preferences. Leave at 7:45, return at 6 o'clock, dinner at 6:30, show at 7 o'clock. A 4:30 return meant something had disrupted the pattern. He walked through the front door and went straight to his office without speaking to anyone. I heard the door close. I heard the lock engage. I heard his voice through the walls, not the words but the tone. Tight. Strained. The voice of a man who has just received news he was not expecting. 20 minutes later he emerged. His face was composed, but the color was wrong. Slightly gray, slightly damp. The face of someone metabolizing a shock and trying to present normalcy to a household that had not yet earned the right to know what was happening. Everything okay? Pamela asked. Fine, Marcus said. Just administrative stuff at the practice. Lease issues. Lease issues. I took a slow sip of the tea I was drinking at the kitchen counter. The property management company had delivered the preliminary notice. Not the formal termination yet. Wallace had instructed them to send a lease review notification first. A standard document that informed the tenant their lease was under administrative review due to payment irregularities. It wasn't a threat. It was a whisper. The kind of whisper that keeps a man awake at 3 a.m. wondering what comes next. Friday, Marcus left for work at 6:30, an hour earlier than usual. He didn't eat the breakfast I had prepared. His dress shirt was wrinkled. I noticed he had not asked me to iron it. He had dressed in the dark in a hurry, and left the house the way a person leaves when they are running toward a problem they cannot solve from home. Pamela noticed too. She stood at the kitchen window watching his car pull out of the driveway, her coffee cooling in her hand, her brow furrowed with the particular worry of a woman who senses that her financial architecture, the country club, the private school, the luxury SUV, is developing hairline fractures she cannot yet see but can feel in the way the floors are beginning to shift. Mom, Pamela said, not turning from the window. Has Marcus said anything to you about money? No, I said. Why would he? She looked at me then. Looked at me the way she hadn't looked at me in months. Not through me, not past me, but at me. For a fleeting moment, I saw something in her eyes that might have been the beginning of real concern. The embryonic awareness that the comfortable world she inhabited was built on foundations she had never inspected. Then it passed. The expression hardened. The mask returned. Never mind, she said. Forget I asked. I did not forget. I never forgot anything. Saturday morning. The house was quiet. Marcus had gone to the office again. A Saturday, which had never happened before. Oliver was at a friend's house. Pamela was at her Pilates class. It was just Lily and me, sitting at the kitchen island, sharing a silence that had become our private language. Lily was doing homework. I was reading or appearing to read. A large print novel Pamela had bought me as a Christmas gift. The kind of book you buy for someone you have decided is old and simple, and in need of unchallenging entertainment. I was actually reviewing trust documents on my phone, held inside the book's pages. Grandma, Lily said, not looking up from her textbook. Something's wrong with Dad. What do you mean? He's been acting weird all week. He came home early on Thursday. He left early yesterday and today. Last night, I heard him and Mom arguing in their bedroom. She was asking about money and he kept saying it's handled. But his voice, she paused. His voice sounded like it does when it's not handled. People argue about money sometimes, sweetheart. It doesn't necessarily mean. He also printed something from his computer last night. After Mom went to sleep, I heard the printer from my room. I think it was the guardianship thing. He's going to do it soon, isn't he? I closed the book. I looked at my granddaughter. This extraordinary girl who had inherited her grandfather's eyes and his ability to see the architecture beneath the surface of things. Lily, do you trust me? More than anyone. Then I need you to trust me when I tell you that everything is going to be okay. Not in the abstract, not in the way adults say things to children to make them stop worrying. I mean specifically, concretely, legally, financially okay. Do you understand what I'm telling you? She studied my face. I let her see it. The real face, not the performance, not the trembling hands and the confused eyes and the shuffling posture I had been wearing for 11 months like a costume. I let her see the woman who had managed $47 million budgets. The woman who had dismantled an 11% invoice inflation scheme without raising her voice. The woman Henry had married because he recognized, before anyone else did, that she was the most dangerous person in any room she entered, not because she was loud but because she was precise. I understand, Grandma. Good. Now I need you to do one more thing for me. What? Next Tuesday evening your mother is hosting her book club. The women will be here at 7. I need you to make sure you're here too. Don't go to a friend's house. Don't stay at the library. Be home. Be in the kitchen. Can you do that? Why Tuesday? Because Tuesday is when I'm going to hand your mother an envelope. Lily looked at me with those clear, sharp eyes. The envelope, she repeated. What's in it? The truth. The weekend passed with the particular heaviness of a house holding its breath. Marcus barely spoke. He spent Saturday afternoon and all of Sunday in his office with the door locked, emerging only for meals he didn't finish and conversations he didn't complete. Pamela orbited him with increasing anxiety, her performance of casual normalcy growing thinner by the hour. I watched it all from the kitchen counter, from the laundry room, from the guest suite above the garage. I watched the way a procurement auditor watches a vendor whose invoices have stopped adding up, not with anger, not with accusation, but with the patient, accumulating certainty that the discrepancy is not a mistake. It is a pattern. And patterns, once fully documented, become inescapable. Monday morning Wallace called. Everything is ready, Doris. The forensic report is complete. The lease termination notice is drafted. The note on the Wyndham Estates property is prepared for formal calling. And the envelope is in my office. The deed. Certified copy. County recorder's stamp. The trust's name is on every page. There is no ambiguity. Good. Doris, I want to be clear about what happens when you hand her that document. The moment they see the deed, they will know that the house they live in belongs to you. They will also know, or will very quickly realize, that you are not the person they believed you to be. The performance ends. Everything after that moment becomes adversarial. I know. Are you prepared for that? She is your daughter. I paused. I thought about Pamela at 7 years old, sitting on Henry's shoulders at the county fair, laughing so hard she couldn't catch her breath. I thought about Pamela at 15, asking me to teach her how to drive, gripping the steering wheel with both hands and checking the mirrors every 4 seconds because she was terrified of getting it wrong. I thought about Pamela at 22, calling me from college in tears because a boy had broken her heart, and I had stayed on the phone for 3 hours saying nothing but, "I'm here," until she finally fell asleep. I thought about Pamela standing in my kitchen 11 months ago, touching my arm with practiced tenderness, saying you'd have privacy and close to the grandkids and you wouldn't have to worry, and meaning none of it. Meaning only, we need the house money, and you are the obstacle between us and it. She stopped being just my daughter, I said to Wallace, the day she helped her husband forge evidence to have me declared incompetent. She became something else. Something I recognize from 31 years of procurement work. What's that? A vendor in breach of contract. Wallace was silent for a moment. Then, what time tomorrow? 7:15. After the book club arrives. I want witnesses. You want her to be seen. I want her to be seen exactly as she is. In front of the women she performs for every Thursday evening. In front of the neighbors who think she's a devoted daughter caring for her aging mother. I want the performance to end in the middle of the audience she built it for. I'll be on standby. If Marcus becomes confrontational, Marcus will not be home. He has a meeting with his lease management company at 6:30. A meeting that Wallace, I suspect, was scheduled rather strategically. The property management company may have requested an urgent in-person review of his lease status at their downtown office. These things happen. These things happen. Doris. Yes. Henry was right about you. You are the most dangerous person in any room you enter. No, Wallace. I'm just the most patient. I hung up. I walked downstairs. I put the kettle on. I heard Marcus's car pull into the driveway. His Monday return, 6 o'clock sharp, the routine momentarily restored. I heard the front door open. I heard his shoes on the hardwood. I heard him pause in the kitchen doorway. Doris. Marcus. I need to talk to you and Pamela this week. Wednesday, maybe. About some planning. Estate planning. Future arrangements. He was accelerating the timeline. The lease notice had spooked him. He needed the guardianship petition filed before the walls closed any further. He needed my signature on something, anything, that would give him legal control before the money ran out entirely and the dental practice collapsed and the house of cards he had been building for years finally fell. Of course, Marcus, I said, pouring hot water into my cup. Whatever you need. I'm just grateful you're looking out for me. He looked at me. For one unguarded second, I saw it. The particular guilt of a man who knows exactly what he is doing and has made peace with it by telling himself it's necessary. The same expression I had seen on the faces of vendors who inflated invoices and executives who buried losses and partners who diverted funds. The face of a person who has committed to the fraud and is now only negotiating with their own conscience about the scale. Your family, Doris, he said. We take care of family. Yes, I said, lifting the teacup to my lips. We do. He walked past me to his office. The door closed. The lock clicked. I took a slow sip of my tea. Earl Grey. Henry's favorite. One more day. Tuesday arrived with a pale autumn light that made the kitchen feel almost warm. I woke at 5:30 as I always did. I lay in bed for exactly 10 minutes, staring at the ceiling of the guest suite, the water stain shaped like a crescent, the slight sag in the drywall near the window, the cobweb in the corner I had stopped cleaning in month 3 because nobody came up here to check, and the effort of maintaining a space nobody valued felt like a concession I was no longer willing to make. I got up. I showered. I dressed. Not in the shapeless, faded clothes I had been wearing for 11 months, but in something I had hidden in the bottom of the suitcase Marcus had banished to the garage. A cream silk blouse. Dark slacks. Low heels. A gold watch, the watch Henry had given me for our 30th anniversary. The one I had stopped wearing the day I moved in because jewelry invited questions, and questions invited attention, and attention was something I had been strategically avoiding. I looked at myself in the small mirror above the bathroom sink. For the first time in 11 months I recognized the woman looking back. Not the shuffling grandmother. Not the confused widow. Not the trembling, forgotten woman who ate standing at the kitchen counter and ironed someone else's shirts and answered to her own name as though it were a summons rather than an identity. Doris. Director of Procurement. 31 years. $47 million. Zero tolerance for fraud. I reached into the suitcase one final time and removed a sealed manila envelope. Inside it was a single document, the certified deed to the property at 1847, Wyndham Estates Drive, recorded in the name of the Henry and Doris Whitfield Revocable Trust, stamped by the county recorder's office, bearing a date 4 years prior. Their house. The house Pamela had decorated. The house Marcus had installed a pool in. The house they had hosted Thanksgiving in and birthday parties and book clubs. The house they slept in every night, confident in the assumption that it was theirs, that the walls belonged to them, that the roof over their heads was something they had earned. It was not theirs. It had not been theirs for 4 years. And they had never once, not once, thought to check. I slid the envelope into my handbag. I walked downstairs. I cooked breakfast, eggs, bacon, toast, coffee, the full routine, the final performance. I served Marcus his plate. I served Pamela hers. I served the children. I stood at the counter and ate a piece of toast with butter, slowly, deliberately, savoring it in a way I had not allowed myself to savor anything in 11 months. Because tonight the counter was the last place I would ever eat standing up. Marcus left for work at 7:45. He did not know that at 6:30 this evening, He would receive a phone call from the property management company requesting his immediate presence at their downtown office for an urgent lease compliance review. He did not know that while he sat in that conference room, being informed that his commercial lease was being terminated for chronic non-payment, I would be standing in his kitchen, handing his wife an envelope that would restructure every assumption she had ever made about who held the power in this family. Pamela left for Pilates at 9 o'clock. She did not look at me as she walked out the door. She had not looked at me directly in weeks, the avoidance of eye contact that guilty people develop when the person they are harming is physically present and inconveniently alive. Oliver went to school. Lily went to school. The house emptied. I stood alone in the kitchen. The same kitchen where I had cooked 312 meals. The same kitchen where my daughter had said, on a Tuesday morning at 7:42 a.m., "You're lucky we let you stay here." I opened my handbag. I looked at the envelope. I ran my thumb along the sealed flap. Then I set it on the counter, poured myself a cup of tea, and sat down in the chair at the head of the kitchen table. The chair nobody had offered me, the chair I had never been invited to use, the chair that had been occupied by Marcus or Pamela or a guest or simply left empty because an empty chair was preferable to one occupied by a woman they had decided was beneath them. I sat there all morning. I sat there all afternoon. I sat in that chair in that kitchen, at the head of that table, drinking tea and waiting for 7:15 p.m. with the patience of a woman who had spent 67 years learning that the most devastating weapon in any negotiation is not anger, not volume, not confrontation. It is timing. And my timing was perfect. At 6:28 p.m. Marcus's phone rang. I was standing at the kitchen counter not because I had to, but because I wanted to hear his voice when he answered. He was in the hallway, putting on his jacket, already agitated from a day that had clearly not gone the way he planned. I heard him pick up. Yes? Yes, this is Marcus Chun. Tonight? I thought the meeting was preliminary. You're saying I need to be there in person? Right now. A pause. His breathing changed. Fine. Fine. I'll be there in 30 minutes. He hung up. I heard him walk to the master bedroom, heard the low exchange with Pamela. I have to go, something with the lease, it can't wait. Heard her start to ask a question he didn't stay long enough to answer. The front door opened and closed. His car started. The headlights swept across the kitchen window as he backed out of the driveway. Gone. I dried my hands on the dish rag. I draped it over the faucet neatly, precisely the last time I would ever touch that dish rag. Then I walked upstairs to the guest suite, removed the cream silk blouse and dark slacks from where I had laid them on the bed that morning, and changed out of the shapeless cotton house dress I had been wearing all day. I put on the blouse. I stepped into the slacks. I fastened Henry's gold watch around my wrist. I looked in the mirror and adjusted the collar. Then I picked up the manila envelope from the nightstand, slid it into my handbag, and walked back downstairs. At 6:52, Lily came through the front door. She had her backpack over one shoulder and her phone in her hand, and she stopped in the kitchen doorway when she saw me. Her eyes moved from the blouse to the watch to the handbag to my face, and I watched the recognition land, not surprise because she had been expecting this, but the particular stillness of a person who understands they are about to witness something they will remember for the rest of their life. "It's tonight," she said. Not a question. "It's tonight." She set her backpack on the counter. "What do I do?" "Nothing, sweetheart. You just be here. You just watch. And when it's over, you and I are going to walk out that front door together." She nodded. Then she walked to the kitchen table, pulled out a chair. Not the folding chair, not the side chair, but the chair next to the one I had sat in that morning, and sat down. At 7 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Pamela's book club was 6 women. I knew them all by now. 11 months of carrying trays and refilling water glasses and being introduced as my mom. She helps around the house had made me fluent in their names, their habits, their particular social hierarchies. There was Sandra, who ran the HOA with the bureaucratic intensity of a woman who had peaked in student government and never recovered. There was Michelle, Pamela's closest friend, who co-chaired the school auction and wore her philanthropy like a designer label. There was Karen, who was kind in the way that kind people are when they have never been tested, gently, abstractly from a safe distance. And there were 3 others whose names I knew but whose presence mattered less than the fact that they were here, in this kitchen at this moment, constituting an audience my daughter could not dismiss, discredit, or control. Pamela greeted them at the door with her performance face fully assembled. The bright smile, the warm hug, the come in, I just opened a gorgeous Sancerre. She was wearing a new blouse I had not seen before, which meant she had purchased it recently, which meant she had spent money recently, which meant the financial bleeding Marcus thought he was hiding was being accelerated by a wife who had no idea the patient was already flatlined. The women settled around the kitchen island. Wine was poured. Cheese was arranged on the board I had washed that afternoon. The book, some best-selling novel about a woman reinventing herself after a divorce, sat unopened on the counter because the book was never really the point. The point was the performance. The point was 6 women affirming each other's curated lives over expensive wine in a house that looked, from every visible angle, like the kind of life worth performing. I stood near the stove where I always stood during book club, the designated position for the woman who existed to refill and remove and remain peripheral. Pamela did not look at me when I entered the kitchen. She never did during book club. I was part of the set design. Present but decorative, functional but silent. At 7:14, I reached into my handbag. At 7:15, I walked to the kitchen island. Pamela. My voice cut through the conversation like a scalpel through silk. Not loud. Not sharp. Just different. A frequency the room had never heard from me before. 6 women stopped mid-sentence. Wine glasses paused in midair. Eyes turned. Pamela looked at me. For the first time in months she actually looked at me, and something in her expression shifted because the woman standing in front of her was not the woman she had been performing around for 11 months. The posture was different. The clothing was different. The voice was different. The eyes were completely, devastatingly different. "Mom," Pamela said, the word coming out uncertain, as though she was no longer sure it applied. "What are you? Why are you dressed like that?" "I have something for you," I said. I placed the manila envelope on the granite countertop between the cheese board and the Sancerre. It sat there pale, heavy, sealed like an unexploded device. "What is that?" Pamela asked. She did not reach for it. Some instinct, some animal awareness buried beneath the performance and the Pilates and the curated Instagram grid, told her not to touch it. "Open it." "Mom, we're in the middle of." "Open it, Pamela." The room was silent. 6 women stared at the envelope. Sandra set her wine glass down. Michelle leaned forward slightly. Karen looked from me to Pamela with the expression of someone who has just realized they are witnessing something they were not supposed to see. Pamela picked up the envelope. Her manicured fingers, the French tip she had done every 2 weeks at a salon that cost $85 per visit, paid for with money she did not earn, slid beneath the flap and tore it open. She pulled out a single document. Heavy paper. Official. Stamped. I watched her eyes move across the page. I watched the words land, the trust name, the property address, the legal description, the recorded date, the county recorder's certification. I watched the precise moment she understood what she was holding. Her face did not crumble. It froze. The particular freeze of a system encountering data it cannot process, not because the data is complex, but because it contradicts every assumption the system was built on. "This is," she started. Her voice had dropped to barely a whisper. "This is a deed." "Yes." "To this house." "Yes." "In the name of." She read it again, as though the words might rearrange themselves if she looked hard enough. "The Henry and Doris Whitfield Revocable Trust." "Yes." She looked up at me. The performance was gone. The mask was gone. What remained was the raw, unfiltered face of a woman whose entire world had just shifted beneath her feet like tectonic plates rearranging in real time. "You own this house?" "Your father owned this house. He bought your defaulted second mortgage 4 years ago through a holding company inside our trust. He did it because Marcus took out that mortgage without telling you, used the money to float his failing practice and defaulted. The bank was going to foreclose. You and the children were going to be on the street. Your father spent $214,000 of his own money to make sure that didn't happen." I paused. "He never told you. He never told Marcus. He just quietly held the note and paid the taxes and maintained the insurance and let you go on believing the house was yours." The silence in that kitchen was absolute. 6 women sat motionless around the island, their wine untouched, their expressions ranging from shock to horror to the particular. Dawning understanding of people who are realizing that the domestic tableau they have been admiring for years was built on a foundation of sand. And now, I said, your father is gone, and the trust passes to me. I am the sole trustee. I am the sole beneficiary. Which means this house, the house you told me I was lucky you let me stay in, belongs to me. Pamela's mouth opened. No sound came out. It has always belonged to me. I reached into my handbag and removed a second document, one I had not put in the envelope, one I had saved for this moment, for her face, for the audience that was now watching with the rapt, terrible attention of people who understand they are seeing something true. This, I said, placing it on the counter, is a forensic accounting report prepared by our trust attorney. It documents $304,786 in unauthorized withdrawals from the joint savings account that held the proceeds from the sale of my house on Briarwood Lane. The money was transferred by Marcus into shell entities he controls, used to service his personal debts, fund his delinquent practice, and, I looked at my daughter directly, pay a $28,000 retainer to the law firm drafting a petition to have me declared mentally incompetent. Sandra gasped. It was a small sound, involuntary, the kind of sound a person makes when they inhale something sharp. He used my money, I continued, my voice flat and precise, to pay the lawyer who was going to take away my right to control my money. Mom! Pamela's voice cracked. The first genuine crack I had heard from her in years. Not the manufactured quiver she deployed when she wanted something, but the actual splintering of a woman who has just watched her own reflection shatter. Mom, I didn't know about the accounts. Marcus handles the finances. I never. You knew about the guardianship petition, Pamela. She flinched. You knew about the stove. Lily told me. Marcus turned the burner on after I left the room and called you in to see it. You documented it. You helped him build a case that your mother was losing her mind so that he could take legal control of my assets. You participated in a conspiracy to defraud your own mother. That's not. You don't understand the pressure we were under. Marcus said. Marcus said a lot of things. He said your father died broke. He said I needed to be taken care of. He said I was lucky you let me stay here. I picked up the deed from the counter and held it between us. You are staying in my house, Pamela. You have been staying in my house for 4 years. And for the past 11 months, you have been treating the woman who owns the roof over your head like unpaid domestic staff. I set the deed down. I looked at the 6 women sitting around the island. They were frozen, not with judgment, not yet, but with the particular paralysis of people who have just been forced to reconcile 2 completely different versions of a person they thought they knew. I apologize for the interruption to your evening, I said, addressing them directly for the first time. But I wanted you to see this. Not because I need witnesses for a legal proceeding, I have an attorney for that. But because my daughter has been performing for you for years. She has been performing the role of a devoted daughter caring for her aging mother, and I wanted you to see in this kitchen, in this light, in front of this cheese board and this very nice wine, exactly what that care looked like. I turned back to Pamela. She was crying now. Real tears. Not the calculated tears I had watched her deploy on Marcus, on Henry, on every authority figure she had ever needed something from. These were the tears of a woman who has just realized that the game she thought she was winning was never a game at all. It was an audit, and the auditor had just delivered the final report. Where is Marcus? She whispered. Marcus is at the property management office for 4200 Crescent Ridge Parkway, I said. The building where he leases his dental practice. He is being informed right now that the building is owned by the same trust that owns this house, and that his commercial lease is being terminated for 130 days of delinquent rent. Pamela's knees buckled. She grabbed the edge of the countertop. He's also being informed, I continued, that the forensic accounting report and the fraudulent guardianship petition have been forwarded to the district attorney's office. A criminal referral for financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult was filed this afternoon. Mom. The word came out like a plea. Mom, please. The children. Think about Lily and Oliver. I have thought about nothing but Lily and Oliver for 11 months, I said. And my voice, for the first time that evening, carried something that was not precision but pain. The deep structural pain of a grandmother who had watched her grandchildren witness cruelty being normalized, silence being enforced, and a family member being erased from the hierarchy of people who mattered. Lily has been the only person in this house who treated me like a human being. She brought me books. She sat with me in the evenings. She asked about her grandfather. She is 15 years old, Pamela, and she has more integrity than every adult in this household combined. I looked across the kitchen. Lily was sitting at the table, exactly where I had asked her to be. Her eyes were wet, but she was not crying. She was watching with the same clear, unguarded attention her grandfather had carried through every room he ever entered. She was witnessing, and she would remember. Lily and Oliver will be taken care of, I said. The trust has provisions for their education, their well-being, and their future. Henry made sure of that. But those provisions are administered by me. Not by Marcus. Not by you. By me. I picked up my handbag. I straightened the gold watch on my wrist. You have 30 days to vacate this house. The formal notice will be delivered by Wallace Kemp's office tomorrow morning. If you contest the eviction, the forensic report, the guardianship petition, and 11 months of documented evidence of financial exploitation and elder abuse will be entered into the court record. 30 days. Pamela's voice was barely audible. Where are we supposed to go? I looked at her. My daughter. My only child. The girl who used to fall asleep in my arms, who used to reach for my hand in parking lots, who used to call me on Sunday mornings just to hear my voice. The woman who had stood in this kitchen and told me I was lucky. I don't know, Pamela, I said quietly, but I imagine it feels a lot like being 67 years old and standing on a porch with melting groceries, waiting for someone to let you into your own house. I walked to the kitchen table. I extended my hand to Lily. Come on, sweetheart. We're leaving. Lily stood up. She took my hand. She picked up her backpack with the other. She did not look at her mother. She did not look at the 6 women sitting in stunned silence around the island. She looked at me, only at me, and she squeezed my hand with a grip that said everything words could not. We walked through the hallway. We walked past the front door with the locks that had been changed without giving me a key. We walked past the closet where Marcus had moved my suitcases. We walked past the guest suite stairs where I had climbed 334 times to a room with a rattling air conditioner and a thin mattress and a window that faced the neighbor's fence. I opened the front door. The evening air was cool and clean, carrying the faint scent of October, wood smoke and fallen leaves, and the particular crispness that arrives when the season decides to stop pretending it's still summer. A black Lincoln Town car was waiting at the curb. Wallace had arranged it. I helped Lily into the back seat. I placed my handbag on the leather beside me. I closed the door. Where to, ma'am? The driver asked. I looked through the window at the house Henry had saved, the house I now owned, the house my daughter would be leaving in 30 days. The kitchen light was on. I could see shapes moving behind the glass. Pamela standing, her friends gathering around her. The particular choreography of a crisis being processed by people who have never experienced one. The Westin downtown, I said. The presidential suite. The car pulled away from the curb. Lily leaned her head against my shoulder. Grandma. Yes, sweetheart. Can we order room service? I smiled. The first real smile in 11 months. We can order anything you want. That was 4 months ago. Marcus was formally charged with financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, bank fraud, and attempted conservatorship fraud. His attorney, the one from Beckford and Associates, the one Marcus had paid with my money, dropped him as a client the day the district attorney's office subpoenaed their retainer records. He is currently awaiting trial, represented by a public defender, living in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in a part of town he used to drive through with his windows up. His dental practice is closed. The lease was terminated. The equipment was seized by the leasing company. His professional license is under review by the State Dental Board pending the outcome of the criminal case. The boat he put a deposit on, the boat he paid for with my house money, was repossessed 3 weeks after the charges were filed. Pamela moved out of the Wyndham Estates house on day 27 of the 30-day notice. She did not contest the eviction. She could not afford to. The forensic report, the guardianship petition, and the manufactured stove incident were documented so thoroughly that her own attorney advised her, in writing, that any legal challenge would result in criminal accessory charges. She filed for divorce from Marcus 11 days after the eviction. The filing cited fraud and financial misrepresentation. She did not cite the 11 months of elder abuse she had participated in. She did not cite the dog-eared guardianship petition she had helped build. She did not cite the $304,786 her husband had stolen from her mother. She cited only the things that had been done to her, not the things she had done. That is who Pamela is. That is who she has always been. And I have made my peace with it, not through forgiveness, not through reconciliation, but through the clean, honest acknowledgement that some people are exactly who they show you they are. And the only failure is in refusing to see it. She is working now. An administrative position at an insurance agency in Raleigh. She rents a 2-bedroom apartment near the highway. She has not contacted me. The terms of the trust's legal settlement include a no-contact provision, not because I am afraid of her, but because I am finished with her. There is a difference between cutting someone off and closing an account. I closed the account. Oliver lives with Pamela. He is 11. He does not fully understand what happened, and I have instructed Wallace to ensure that the trust's educational provisions remain available to him regardless of his mother's behavior. He is a child. Children do not choose their parents. They should not inherit their parents' debts. Lily lives with me. This was not a legal battle. It was a conversation, a quiet, private conversation between a grandmother and a granddaughter who looked at each other across a kitchen table and both knew, without saying it, that the only safe place left in the family was each other. Pamela agreed to temporary custody without a fight. I believe she was relieved. Lily was the one witness she could not manage, the one pair of eyes she could not meet, the one person in the house who had seen everything and remembered all of it. Lily and I live in a new condominium overlooking the lake. A real condominium, not a guest suite above a garage, not a room with a rattling air conditioner and a window facing a fence. It has 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a 6-burner stove, a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows, and a balcony where I drink my tea every morning and watch the water change color with the seasons. I cook when I want to. I eat sitting down. I eat at the table, at the head of the table, in a chair that is mine, from a plate that is mine, in a home that is mine. Lily has her own room. She decorated it herself, bookshelves covering one entire wall, a desk near the window where she does her homework, a framed photograph of Henry on the nightstand. She is doing well in school. She joined the debate team. She is considering pre-law. She told me last week, sitting on the balcony after dinner, watching the sun go down behind the tree line. Grandma, I want to do what you did. I want to learn how to read people and read contracts, and make sure nobody ever takes advantage of someone I love. I looked at her, this extraordinary girl, this clear-eyed, sharp-minded, quietly fierce young woman who had inherited her grandfather's patience and, I am beginning to suspect, her grandmother's precision. You already know how, I said. You knew before any of us. You saw it first. She smiled. Henry's smile. The slow, certain smile of a person who knows exactly who they are and has decided that who they are is enough. I still have the manila envelope. It sits in the top drawer of my desk, empty now, the deed long since filed with Wallace and the trust records. I keep it because it reminds me of something Henry wrote in his letter, the letter I found in the suitcase Marcus banished to the garage, the letter that sat in the lining of luggage nobody cared to open, waiting for me the way Henry always waited for me, patiently, quietly, with complete confidence that I would find it when I needed it. Wait for the right moment. You'll know it when it comes. He was right. I knew it the moment Lily stood in my doorway holding a piece of paper and looking at me with eyes that said, I see you. I know who you are. And I need you to be that person now. That was the moment. Not the guardianship petition. Not the drained bank account. Not the stove or the locks or the counter meals or the 11 months of invisible labor. Those were data points. Those were entries in a ledger I was building with the meticulous patience of a woman who had spent 31 years auditing systems built on lies. The moment was my granddaughter. The moment was a 15-year-old girl who walked into a room and said, without knowing she was saying it, the thing no one else in that house had ever said to me, you matter. What they're doing to you is wrong. And I trust you to fix it. She was the reason I acted when I did. She was the reason I didn't wait another month, another quarter, another fiscal year. Because I could endure the counter meals and the locked doors and the rattling air conditioner. I could endure being called lucky by the woman I raised. I could endure all of it because I am Doris Eleanor Whitfield, and I have endured worse in conference rooms where the stakes were measured in millions and the opponents were smarter than Marcus Chen will ever be. But I could not endure watching my granddaughter grow up in a house where cruelty was called practicality, where theft was called family planning, and where a woman's value was measured by her willingness to stand at the counter and eat in silence. I could not let her learn that this is what love looks like. So I handed my daughter one envelope, and inside that envelope was not just a deed. It was the truth about who owned the house, who owned the story, and who had been holding the power all along while the people who mistook her silence for surrender kept building a cage they didn't realize she had the key to. My name is Doris. I am 67 years old. I spent 11 months sleeping in a guest suite above a garage, cooking meals I was not invited to eat, ironing shirts for a man who was stealing my money, and being told by my own daughter that I was lucky. I was not lucky. I was patient. And patience, in the hands of a woman who knows how to read a contract, is the most devastating thing in the world. They thought I was the help. I was the audit. And in my audit, every single debt gets collected. Thank you for staying all the way to the end. The people who finish the whole story are the ones who understand it, and the ones who share it. If this one moved you, the next video on your screen is waiting to do the same. And if you haven't subscribed yet, come back. There's always another woman the world underestimated. And we tell those stories here.